Hello. So my name's Hannah Mary, and I've started these diary entries as a way to document and explore, and hopefully through major faults in what I'm doing, be able to give you, anybody who wants to listen, some insight into my journey so far, the journey I'm going to be taking, and hopefully possible not solutions but management for living without a spleen, specifically living without a spleen due to ITP, also known as immune thrombocytopenia purpura or idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura. So this entry today will be mainly discussing how I came to having my spleen removed and what my journey has been so far. Mainly bad things and the decisions I've had to make, what they didn't tell me about having my spleen removed, and the place I'm in now, where I've reached a point where I have to make major changes for my health. The reason I'm making this video and wanting to share it rather than a more private diary on my journey is that when I try to research ITP, you get facts and figures. When I try to research living without a spleen, you get general Wikipedia style lists of things you may like to try, things that you may need to be aware of, but no real concrete lived experience, the life experience of someone going through the process of figuring out how to manage this and how to live a healthy life. And though I know it is quite rare to have ITP and to then opt to have your spleen removed, there are a lot of people out there living without a spleen, so I'm sure that a good percentage of those people are going to be people who have had to have it removed due to ITP. So let's start from the beginning. So my name's Hannah Mary, I live in the UK. My hospital that I was under is based in the West Midlands. I'm 27 and I developed ITP when I was 22. I was living in Wales. I was living in a very mouldy flat that had black mould growing in several places, and although it can't be proved because the house that I was living in coincidentally decided to redecorate everything and shut it down as soon as I moved out, it's my belief that though most autoimmune diseases tend to be hereditary, or you've got a predisposition for it in your genetic makeup, it's my belief that it was triggered by living in a flat for 6 months with toxic black mould. Because although I had lots of problems with tiredness and anemia throughout my childhood, this came out of nowhere. It just hit me like that and made me incapable of doing the simplest things. Along with the ITP, I just showcased so many other symptoms of mould poisoning, of blood poisoning, and there are several research studies that link ITP to mould. So though though I had photographs, the Environmental Health Agency said that they would have had to have gone physically into the flat, and at that point I wasn't living there anymore. So there we go. Someone somewhere has got away with that, but I did the normal things. I went through the stages of first being told that it was only acute, so I was put on steroids, then I was taken off steroids, then it became chronic. The difference being acute tends to burn out after 6 months, chronic is when it's more than 6 months and the body's learnt that pattern and is never going to unlearn it. For anybody watching this who is watching it not knowing what ITP is, and maybe watching it just more for the spleen related topics rather than ITP. ITP is where your immune system attacks your platelet count being how thick your blood is, how its ability to clot. And obviously if you haven't got any cuts, then you won't necessarily notice that you've got thin blood, but the lower it goes, the body kind of works on a valve system, like a door system. So any of the organs where it's not a valve or a door system letting the blood in and out as it feels like, you're going to get internal bleeding. So the stomach and the brain, for example, a lot more free flowing of blood. So that's major serious ITP. That's when it gets to that stage. But generally it just it exhausts you, it makes you very fragile, you bruise very easily, you can bleed very easily, you can have internal bleeding if you're knocked somewhere that in a normal person would protect itself, but for you, you're going to get real damage. It's just exhausting and very scary. So I went into the chronic stage and I was given steroids on and off for 2 years, and they kept on trying to wean me off steroids, and eventually when it got to the point where I'd been off them for a few months and I crashed again, the consultant said to me that they could no longer keep giving me steroids because of my age, because of my bones, because of my kidney and liver, and it's not a drug you're supposed to stay on a long time. They said that I could either have a splenectomy or I could try chemotherapy, but because I didn't have cancer, they didn't know how my body would respond to chemo. So after seeing a few consultants, some saying, don't have your spleen out, this is the worst thing you can do, we don't do this anymore, and others saying, it's fine, we've been treating ITP like this for years. Because the waiting list was so long for me to have the relevant tests done in London to check that the spleen was my only option, just to be very, very sure that this was right for me, because it's a 60-40 chance it will work, and that's to do with whether or not your platelets, your white blood cells, are also doing their job in other organs like the liver and the gallbladder. But for me, I took the risk. I wanted to be well. Thought, they're telling me this will work, 60% chance. I don't want to wait 2 years. I want to get on with my life, so I had my spleen out. And what I was told was that I'd have to be on antibiotics for life. And that's how in this country they deal with asplenic patients, to protect you from serious infection like pleurisy, sepsis, pneumonia type infections. They put you on penicillin based antibiotics, and I'm taking 250 milligrams twice a day for life, and that's how they manage the increased risk of infection. Some of the things they didn't tell me about having my spleen out was that it would potentially affect my B12, that it would make me extremely high risk for diabetes, and that a study done for asplenic patients 5 years down the line after having their spleen out was that they were pre-diabetes, so they were on their way to having diabetes after only 5 years. I wasn't told it would affect my ability to not have children, because it doesn't directly affect that, but because of the estrogen levels in pregnancy, and ITP is linked to high estrogen levels as well. In fact, a lot of people who get pregnant develop ITP. I wasn't told, and it wasn't ever explained to me, that there would always then be risks involved in pregnancy, because if I was to get pregnant, I would most likely develop ITP again, especially since it's in my past history. And then I'd be put on steroids again, and then both me and my baby would be on steroids for those 9 months. And there's no guarantee that the baby's gonna get rid of that once they're born, although a lot of the time it burns out. But even if it does for the baby, there's no guarantee that the ITP would go away for me. So then I am a immune suppressed individual with ITP, having to be put on more drugs to control the ITP. So that's not really fair on me or a baby. Though people have said it's manageable, they manage people when they're pregnant. I find the word offensive. I don't want to be managed. To me, it's not a word you should use when you're bringing a life into the world and you're living with this management every day. So there were a lot of things that weren't really explained. Antibiotics, I didn't know long term kill off all of the good bacteria in your gut, which long term can cause quite bad fungal infections, increase in candida all over the body, which isn't nice for a woman. So you get thrush and more prone to ringworm, and I've got folliculitis on my scalp, and I'm constantly getting water infections, which the doctor says can't be linked to my lack of spleen, but there's a hell of a lot of research that shows that one of the main reasons that women get lots of water infections as well as thrush is because all that lovely healthy bacteria that lives in our guts and in our vaginas that controls that level, that pH, can very easily get out of balance and creep up and cause you water infections. So of course there's a fungal element attached to water infections. In the past 3 years, whilst I've been taking penicillin, which is supposed to stop me from getting pneumonia and pleurisy and sepsis, I've had pleurisy and sepsis. It's done nothing to treat water infections, and in the past 12 months I've had folliculitis, which I can't get rid of, and I've started to lose hair. I've had ringworm, which I'm pretty sure is similar bacteria. I've had on and off thrush. I've had on and off water infections ever since I've had my spleen out, which was what resulted in the sepsis, which I was hospitalised for. It took me months to get over it. It's really, sepsis is not one you joke about. I've had tonsillitis, which I couldn't get rid of because I'd become resistant to the penicillin, which meant they just whacked me on more penicillin until it did something, but it took 4 months to go away. and then they were talking to me about removing my tonsils when my tonsils are a part of my immune system, so I'm not having those removed as well. It's just been endless infection, both serious and low grade infection, and I've got to a point now where I'm just asking why should I live like this? Serious infection will always be an issue, but serious infection can be negated by correct diet, exercise and supplements, really making good choices in your life. It's not going to stop it completely, but it reduces it significantly. And low grade infection, the kind that you get every day, that makes life seriously difficult because you're always a little bit run down, not now and again, every day for years. That's where the real damage occurs. A serious infection, if controlled and you're not resistant to your antibiotics and you've built up that immune system, you can manage as it comes and get over it and build back. But if you're constantly dealing with low grade infection, it's just not quality of life. I have had comments from GPs saying, that it's not such a big deal if I lose my hair, at least I don't have serious infection, because I've asked to come off my penicillin. The doctors have acknowledged and admitted that penicillin long term causes fungal infections. But my argument is that it was a water infection that gave me sepsis, which is a serious, life-threatening illness. So it's all about controlling and making really good day-to-day choices that long-term serve your body the best stead it can. I was never very unhealthy, but I'm currently on 3 kinds of antibiotics. I'm on my penicillin, which is my prophylactic. That means it's a baseline. They're not active ones. They're supposed to protect me generally against bad bugs. Does nothing for viruses though. And it does kill off, bit by bit, all of the good bacteria in your stomach. I'm on oxytetracycline, which is for folliculitis, and before that I was on a different antibiotic, which limacycline, which stopped working after 3 months because I became resistant to it, so now I'm on a different one, so we'll see how this goes. I've been on it for 2 months and it's starting to come back, so I'm guessing I'm going to have to swap to another one. And I'm on fluconazole. Fluconazole is an antifungal antibiotic. This is because of the overload of fungal infections that are caused by the first 2. So I'm now on 3 antibiotics every day, and it's not 1 pill. Some of them are 2 pills a day. It is ridiculous. I am being treated for fungal infections caused by antibiotics by giving me more antibiotics. So this is where we come to the bit where I say no more. Let's find a different way of living life. So some of the side effects I've noticed from living without a spleen and being on antibiotics are extreme joint pain, just painful. Really, my whole body feels inflamed all the time. Tiredness, I am tired all the time. Chronic fatigue, people sometimes use it when they shouldn't. That's definitely what I have. Whether it's just constantly being invaded by low-grade infection that causes, after a while, your body to develop chronic fatigue, potentially, but that's what I have. Fevers at night, very strange. I fever at night. and only at night. And it sometimes feels like I've wet the bed, I've sweat that much. And it's only happened since I've had my spleen out, and not in the day. It's very, very weird, and it happens maybe at least once a week. When I'm very bad, maybe 3 times a week. But my body's constantly trying to get rid of something. It's constantly gone into crisis mode. My blood pressure is different since I've had my spleen out. Very low, affected very easily, and my blood sugar as well. I have to eat a lot more often, and if I don't eat, I look like and I feel like I'm seriously ill. It's very weird. Whether it's something to do with the way that you absorb and are able to take in nutrients, or I don't know, but something has changed that means that I can be fine, and then I'm a bit hungry, and within half an hour I've gone, I have to lie down, I can't do anything, I can't think properly. But I'm not diabetic, because that would be the easy answer. But I could be pre-diabetic, which is extremely likely now for me. I've been talking to holistic therapists, and I've been talking to people who just live their life very well. And over the next couple of weeks to months, I've got kind of a 12-month plan to come off all my antibiotics, implement lots of new changes, and help my body naturally fight infection, build itself back up and clear toxins, reduce my risk of diabetes, and reduce the inflammation in my body. I think everybody knows when they've reached a point where enough is enough, and my body's telling me that it's had enough now of antibiotics. That's it. It's done with them. So I need to help it come off them. For anybody who is watching this who might be thinking, I feel the same, I've been on antibiotics a really long time, they're not working anymore, because they'll only work for a while and then you will become resistant, and then the more it kills off the good bacteria in your body, it doesn't matter what it's protecting you from, it's going to tip the balance and you will be down here. That's the only way I can describe it. Is when I first went on them I felt fantastic, and it was keeping the infection in check bit by bit, year by year. So I'm on year 3 now without a spleen. It's tipped the balance, and bacteria is winning. Even if it's only low grade, it's only fungal, bacteria is winning. And that's just the way antibiotics work. They're not meant to be used every day for years. I'm not saying that if you get very, very sick at some point in your life that you shouldn't take antibiotics. I'm saying that they have a purpose, and this is a complete abuse of that purpose. This is easier and cheaper than sending me to a nutritionist. It's safer on the doctor's side, following these guidelines and talking about nature, foods, really understanding how food affects us. But all medicine is just synthesized versions of things that are found naturally in the world. My cat's saying hello. So if people are watching this and they want to come off their antibiotics, don't do it all at once. I'm on 3 kinds. In the past 2 weeks, have come off my penicillin. It's day 3 now without penicillin, and I'm seeing how I go. To counteract that, I've added garlic allium into my diet, because garlic's a natural antibiotic. I'm drinking apple cider vinegar, about 2-3 teaspoons in about this much water, because it tastes horrible and your stomach needs the water, I think, really to cope with it. It isn't acid after all, and you're not supposed to overdose on it. I'm drinking that every morning because it's levels the pH out in your system. It's also natural, antifungal, antibacterial, and it's a prebiotic. So what you want is prebiotics. Probiotics are good, but prebiotics are better. Prebiotics are what feed the probiotics in your stomach. If you just keep putting probiotics in, they're most likely to be killed off because they're not natural, they're being added in. Prebiotics help feed your stomach to continually make your own probiotics, and that's what you want. You want the things which help your body naturally create, not just putting lots of fake, more of the same stuff in and hoping for the best. So prebiotics are better. Both together are fantastic. So I take a probiotic along with lots of prebiotics, which is your garlic, onion, leeks, apple cider vinegar. But again, all these things are best taken raw. These are sorts of things I'm going to be exploring bit by bit as I go along, and I change my life. Hopefully, I make it I make it living rather than surviving, because that's how it feels. So I've rambled quite a bit. I promise that the next one will be more succinct, and it will be more about how I'm making these changes and what I'm finding. I'll be doing diaries of how that's affecting me and whether or not I'm feeling any different, any improvements. But I really felt that you needed a general overview of why I'm in this place, of the sort of effects it's had, and I hope that someone out there who's desperate, like I've been for the last 3 years, Googling every day something else to make me feel better, finds this and just doesn't feel as alone as I felt trying to figure this out. And I definitely haven't figured it out yet, but I've been speaking to some amazing people. I spoke to a woman this evening who had lived for 40 years without a spleen, without any antibiotics, and it was just so encouraging. And we can do it, and we'll find a way of doing it, and I want to be the guinea pig, and let's do this together. I'll be the guinea pig, and you can hopefully miss out all the bad things I get wrong and only take the good ones that have actually helped, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to post every few weeks so that there's actually a difference, and I can tell you if there's a difference. And I hope this helps somebody somewhere. I believe, though it's been very hard, I believe that there is a way through this. And it's best to do it now rather than when you have real chronic illness from abusing your body for a really long time with medication. So, signing off, saying good health, good thoughts, good words, good heart, and good health, and wish me luck. The list of things that I'm adding in whilst taking out my penicillin for the next couple of weeks are Soul Seeds, which is a product by Rain International, carotenoid complex, garlic allium, the apple cider vinegar with the mother in water, vitamin C, vitamin A, although that's one really to take when you're not on antibiotics. I'm only going to do that every other day because it's heavy on the liver, and so are antibiotics, so they're not great together. Zinc and silica. So next time I'll talk to you about what each one of those does and if I've felt a difference. More than welcome, go and Google it now and wish me luck.